Welcome to Organizing Elephants, the show with sanity-saving wisdom from smart, busy, accomplished women. My name's Darla DeMorrow, and you're watching the MLTV Mainline Network. Today on our show, we have a friend and colleague of mine. Glad to have you on the show, Theresa Hummel-Krallinger. I messed that up. Please say your name again.
It's Theresa Hummel-Krallinger.
Krallinger.
You were so close,
I was so close. Sorry. See, we're not about perfection here on this show. I'm not going to make them edit that out. Thanks for being here, Theresa.
It's good to be here.
You and I met for the first time last year, and I was so impressed with an event that you had. It's really just sort of the tip of the iceberg, but maybe we'll start talking about all the things that you do with the author event. It's we're taping this in December. It's kind of book season. Mm-hmm. I don't know. For you and me, I think it's always book season, right?
It is always book season.
But you were kind enough to invite me to share my books at the author event at the Pyramid Club, which is downtown Philadelphia. For people who have not heard of that, why don't we start there? Tell me a little bit about that event that is ongoing and how you started that.
So I joined the Pyramid Club, which is a professional business club for folks that work in Center City, Philadelphia, surrounding counties, New Jersey. And when I joined the club, I immediately felt at home. I was really enjoying my experience there, and I thought, what can I do to give back? And I know a lot of authors. A lot of my friends have written books, so I thought maybe I can start a round table, and we'll talk about, different books. So they agreed. They're like, sounds like a great idea. And it has evolved from being, a handful of people talking about a book with an author to now sometimes we get anywhere from 30, 50, sometimes 100 people who come and listen to an author the second Thursday every month from 6 to 8 p.m. We're in our 6th year, which is crazy when you think, time just went so fast. Yeah. And we're listed on Philadelphia Business Journal's Book of Lists as number 7 for Best Networking Business Association of Philadelphia.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And it's very sneaky because it doesn't feel like a networking event at all.
No, but it is.
Yeah.
It is. In fact, very often when I meet people who are trying to build their business or they're looking to find work, I invite them to meet the author, not just because the authors are great, because they are, yes, but because before and after the event, you're going to have the opportunity to meet some really wonderful people. And they are. They're truly wonderful people. They're smart. And a lot of them want to help other people.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why you write a book.
Yes.
I think you don't write a book for you.
That's true.
Right? Especially if you're writing a nonfiction or you're in the subject. You know a lot about that subject. Right. What you're doing is you're trying to impart your knowledge, your inspiration, your personal story, your memoir, whatever it is, you're trying to share that with other people. So yeah, that's exactly what being an author is about. That's awesome. And now, is this event, do you have to sign up? Is there a fee? Do you have to sign up for 12 months at a time? Or how does somebody find out and go to that event?
It's really easy. So if someone's a member of the Pyramid Club, they have free admission. So that makes it very easy for them. Right. If you're not a member, there's a website, meettheauthorpc.com, that usually has 2 to 3 events that are upcoming. Registration links are there. The registration is really reasonably priced. The key for this event is I didn't want to do this as a moneymaker. I wanted to do this as an opportunity to connect people. And I am blessed to have so many really interesting people in my life. This is a great way to connect these interesting people with these interesting people.
Yeah. So. I met some really cool people when I was there. And the night I went, we had the part of the program was like a little 3-minute sharing between you and whoever was sitting next to you. And whatever, I don't even remember what the topic was, but I remember the woman I was sitting next to looked at me and said, oh my God, I needed to hear that tonight. Whatever you just said to me, I needed to hear that tonight because it just helped me solidify a big decision that I had to make. And I don't know what it was. I hope, she went on to do great things.
That's awesome.
But it was, it was one of those bone-chilling moments when you're like, oh, something amazing just happened.
And that's every year when we do, and that was part of the women's panel. Every year when we do that panel, I ask the same question. What is a goal that you want to accomplish in the next 12 months? Find somebody that you don't already know, share that goal with them, and provide each other with advice and encouragement.
It's so funny. You remember exactly what
because
that
I do it every
you do
year.
It every year. And
it's a great question.
Yeah.
Because I like to get people thinking in terms of every year there's something in your life that you're accomplishing or you're getting better at. So
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we could spend the whole show talking about that event, but that is one little thing that you do. You're like a Renaissance woman. You're a multifaceted woman. So tell me about your, the boring stuff, your career, which is not boring stuff.
No. And another area where I'm just very, very blessed. So I work with leaders and organizations to create places where people want to work.
And what's your company called?
It's called High Five Performance. Gosh, been around since 2002, and I can't believe that either. How fast that time went.
Can you believe we're at the end of a decade right now?
No, I just saw that this morning. I was reading an article. I said, oh my gosh, this is the end of the 2010s.
Yeah, it kind of puts a little pressure on like the next few weeks to wrap it up nicely, doesn't it?
It is wild.
Yeah. So you've been around a long time doing what you love doing.
A long time now. I'm grateful for the experience I had at a full-time job. I was at Prudential Financial for 18 years. I worked for, it's a wonderful company, and it really was my education, in addition to traditional education. So when I left Prudential, started the company, and have worked with nonprofits, have worked in financial services, have worked with pharmaceuticals, technology companies. It's you name it, I've done it. But my focus is really helping managers and leaders be better managers and leaders and creating healthy organizational culture. And I am blessed to work with some of the best organizations in our area.
That's cool. I came out of corporate, a very similar history to you. And I work with a lot of small businesses right now. And I know that there's a gap a lot of times when smaller businesses, even larger corporations who you work a lot with, say, we need somebody to help us just be a little bit better, right? We have great employees, but we want to provide them additional opportunities or additional, training. We need to know what's hot these days. And you're the person who comes in and does that.
I am the bridge.
Yes.
Yeah. And the beautiful thing is, if I were an employee, I couldn't do the same thing that I do as a consultant.
You kind of have to be up out of the fray, looking around, looking at trends. I know what you're talking about.
And there's so many organizations I think, oh my gosh, I love this place so much. I could work here. No, I couldn't, because if I did, it's not the same.
Right.
At all.
Right.
So, but I have a couple really interesting projects now that I'm working on: organizational culture, helping an organization come up with their company values and mission, which is so important because that's very long lasting.
Right.
But my favorite thing is really helping managers be the best that they can be, because most people at work, if they're happy, it's because they're happy with their manager.
Yeah.
If they're unhappy, because they're probably not happy with their manager. Like, that is a big part of one's satisfaction on the job. So if I can help managers be better managers, I'm actually helping increase joy in the workplace.
That is really true in so many areas of our life. We talk about real estate. We always say staging when we stage a house. It's actually not about the property. It's about the people. You're really helping people get to where they need to be.
Yes.
It's the same thing with where you work. It's the same thing with organizing. Sometimes, and we've had a big discussion in my Facebook group recently about this, sometimes organizing is not a problem with the stuff, it's a relationship problem. And what the other person in your house is doing with the stuff or not doing with the stuff. So I think that just really, it's a reminder that so much of our life is really driven by the relationships and the people.
Yeah, and there's always this underlying psychology.
Yeah.
No matter what work you do, we may not have, advanced degrees in psychology, but you need to understand, why do people do what they do? What's driving them?
Yes.
And how can we help them create the behaviors and sometimes create the thought processes that will lead to good behaviors so that they'll have more successful outcomes.
I feel like my mother always used to say, isn't it good that everybody's not just like you? And when I was younger, I would say, no, but everybody should be like me, right? And then as I've gotten older, I come to realize I'm so glad everybody's not like me and everybody has different talents. And but there still is that push-pull. There's a tug often. That person's not acting like I would like them to act or like I would act. And so we kind of have to have a vision for how everybody brings their talents to the table, right?
And we're all needed.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're all needed.
So, okay, so that's only two of the things that you do that you have sort of on your resume. Talk to me about what you do with your evening hours out at the clubs. You don't look like a clubbing type to me.
So stand-up comedy, which is always, when people first meet me, that's kind of the shock.
Yeah.
So I introduce myself and I say, this is what I do during the day, and on the weekends I get paid to make people laugh.
Yeah.
And they're like, really? And then they don't really want to know about what you do during the day.
Yeah.
Because that is the fascinating part. It's interesting because I never thought I would ever do it. You know, I'm a very serious corporate chick. It's what I do. I work with leaders, and it's serious work, right? So I leave Prudential, and I go out on my own. And for the first time, I kind of am managing my calendar in a very different way. Like, I have a lot of flexibility. Montgomery County Community College had a stand-up comedy class, 8 weeks. I think it was $89, a couple minutes from my house. And I thought, you know what? I don't want to be a stand-up comic, but how fun would it be to go to this class? I'm all about, I'll make some new friends, and I'll learn some skills that I can use in my speaking and training.
Right. Oh, that's great foundation for getting out there in front of people.
Absolutely. So I'm like, this makes perfect sense. Let's do this. In fact, I enrolled my nephew. I said, let's do this together.
Oh, fun.
So the two of us went. There were 20 people in the class, and by the third program, I could tell my nephew's like, holy cow, this is hard work. It is. You know, people think you just like, it just like comes from you naturally. There's funny things, but you have to shape them and polish them. And some things that you think are funny end up not being funny, and you have to like let it go. So that whole 8 weeks, you're honing a 5-minute set. And you're doing it in front of the class, and you're getting feedback, some of it joyful, some of it that didn't work so well.
And let's be clear, honing means over and over and over.
Writing. And it has to be your stuff. You know, like you're observing the world, and you think to yourself, and I always carry a notebook now, and now I'll do it electronically. You see something, you're like, that's a bit. That's a bit. I got to capture that, and then
that's
you can work on it.
I want to stop you right there, because that's
an organizing
thing. That's an organizing tip. We were talking with a guest, I think last time around, about, you know, you got to write it down when it happens, because tomorrow you'll forget that funny little thing
and
that you saw.
And it was a gem, Darla. It was a gem, and you'd think, oh my gosh, that was the best thing. What was it? You know the notes feature on your phone?
Yeah.
That is a godsend. Now, I know some comics use like a voice recorder on the phone. I use the notes feature, and I'll just jot down a couple notes. And then I have a list of potential comedy bits. And every now and then I go in and I pull something out and I work on it.
And sometimes two disparate ideas from totally different days, totally different places, they might come together and become a bit.
So at the end of the class, we had a graduation show. 9 of us graduated. So you have to figure, we had 20 to start. 11 people did not get on stage. But 9 of us did. We each did our 5 minutes, and I actually got some laughs.
Oh, fun.
So I pursued advanced comedy.
And that's like crack, isn't it?
Do you know what? Well, you know, it's a chemical.
It is.
It's a dopamine.
Completely serious. It does actually hit the same place that crack does.
It does. But a little bit healthier. A little bit healthier. I would recommend this, wouldn't recommend the other. So I took an advanced comedy class, got myself up to 10 minutes, kept writing, kept working on it, got myself to 15.
On the same set?
Yeah, you just keep building.
Wow.
You keep building. Unless you pick topical things, like if you start to do like politics, you can't keep doing that same stuff because it gets old. So like right now, this is funny. But 5 months from now, it's not. So I try to write things that have longevity. But sometimes things change. You know, like I actually had a joke about our former Pope, and God rest his soul. But he died. And when he died, I had to take that Pope joke out because it was no longer relevant. But yeah, so I've been doing comedy 17 years. I did a lot of clubs in the beginning, and now I do a lot of fundraiser shows. I work with Joe Conklin, which is a delight because he always gets a nice packed room for his shows. So it's a joy.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so that's 3 of the things that you do.
It is.
And then you also have a TV show, which I just learned about. So tell me about that.
So I booked the guests for a show on PBS 39 called Counterculture. My good friend Grover Silcox is the host of the show. He has years and years on TV and radio. Just a wonderful, he's a wonderful host and a wonderful human being. So he reached out to me last year and he said, listen, I'm going to do this talk show at Daddy Pop's Diner in Hatboro, and we're going to interview people at the counter, and we're going to call it Counterculture.
I love that.
So it's brilliant.
So corny, but it works, right?
And it's perfect for Grover because Grover really hangs out in that diner. Like, that is his neighborhood diner. So he needs 12 guests a month. And that's a lot of people.
12 guests a month?
12 guests a month.
Oh my gosh, that's a ton of booking.
There you go. So he reached out, and I said, you know what? Can I help you get guests? And he's like, that's why I'm calling you. I'd like your help.
Yeah.
So I officially partner with him to book the guests on that show. So first season, I think we did 18 episodes. The gentleman that we work with submitted for an Emmy. So then we won a nomination for an Emmy for the first season, which, you know, I don't have a TV background, and I just thought, this is unbelievable.
Yeah. So you got nominated for an Emmy. That's fabulous.
We did. And then while I was on my cruise, they were at the Emmy celebration, and our team won.
You won the Emmy.
So we all have an
amazing.
Emmy. So it was, yes.
So you don't have an, now, I'm not sure yet who all is watching this show. I mean, it's a pretty new show, but I just think that it's like a really inspirational story here. You don't have a comedy background. You went and did it.
Yes.
You don't have a TV background.
No.
You just started doing it. You didn't have to, you know, nobody had to tell you, hey, this is a career path you should look into.
Just do it.
You got to a point, it was the right thing to do. You took the next best step, and you ended up with an Emmy. That is crazy.
It's crazy.
I love it.
It's crazy. So then we did season 2. And now we're getting ready to book season 3.
Oh, wonderful.
So in fact, I have a call today with Grover to go through potential guests to kind of vet, like, is this somebody you want? And who's on your list? Because getting 12 guests a month is a lot.
Yeah. So it's do you go for really interesting people or really interesting topics or a mix of both?
It has to fit that theme of culture.
Okay.
So local culture, artists, any kind of performance arts, singers, comedians, authors, historians.
Oh, right.
And then sometimes just cool, quirky people. Like we had the Philly Fanatic.
Oh, yeah.
He was a fan favorite, definitely. We've had some sports personalities. We had Bernie Parent, who was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, but it's a nice way for local people. When I say local, it's actually a pretty big broadcasting area. So it's Lehigh Valley's the station, but it's Philadelphia, surrounding counties, some of New Jersey. I think it goes down to Maryland and up to New York.
Wow.
But you are going to see a lot of really neat people who just do cool stuff.
Yeah.
And Grover makes it like it is a conversation at a diner.
Yeah. And I don't know if sort of diners are a thing all over the country. You know, we had 1 or 2 where I was growing up in the Midwest, but it was kind of a pancakes only sort of thing. But diners are a real thing here in Philadelphia. And Hatboro, you know, Hatboro is a small town. Wayne here, where we're taping, we have Manila's Diner in town. And, you know, it's just a place you can go in, you can get absolutely any kind of food, and nobody's going to rush you out of there. You could just have 1 cup of coffee. Diners are great. They're special.
Waitress will call you hun.
Yeah.
So it's very endearing. Yeah. I think that's part of the
that's part of the charm.
Thing. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. If you're in the South, they'll call you sugar. But
it's true. It's true. You just have to watch out when they say bless your heart.
Yeah.
It's usually not a good thing.
It doesn't mean that's probably in your bit somewhere.
I've learned that. Yeah, bless your heart. You have to kind of wonder.
Yes. Okay. So those are the 4 things that I know about. Is that enough? Does that keep you busy?
It does. It does keep me busy. And of course, there's all kinds of extra fun things that I like to do on the side, because I just look at life as you got to squeeze the juice out of it. Yeah. There's a lot of neat stuff, and that's probably why I take these risks. You know, who would get into stand-up comedy? Like, I was in my late 30s. Because you got to take the risk. I mean, put yourself out there, right?
Well, it's funny. I think I mentioned to you my daughter, my younger daughter. She's about 10 years old right now, and usually at dinner time she'll crack a joke. And sometimes she's been working on it. Sometimes it's not something she's been working on, and we'll say, that one needs a little bit more work. And maybe the next night she'll come back. And so I told her that you were going to be on the show and that you were a woman who did stand-up comedy. And I said, like you do. And my daughter says, what? I don't do comedy. And I said, no, that's what you do at dinner. She hadn't seen herself.
She didn't make the connection.
She didn't make the connection of, maybe professionally being funny, or I'm not sure what was going on in her little head. But I wanted specifically to say to her, hey, there's a woman out there that does this for fun, and, she probably gets paid for it. And it was neat to see kind of that connection on her, happening with her. I mean, I know exactly one joke, and maybe I can remember the punchline at any given time. So I have a lot of respect for you, being able to get up in front of people. That's hard, or frightening for a lot of people, and to make people laugh, because we need more laughter in the world, right?
It's a blessing to have this opportunity. You should tell your daughter, if she really wants to get into comedy, take a class.
She's in an improv class, which is funny.
You go.
They have an improv class at the school, and it's a great way for the kids to be silly, but also to learn a few of the tricks that you probably learned in your class that you took at the community college. They don't kind of know they're learning, real skills, because it's more fun for them at this point. But there will be a night in the spring where they get up on stage and they perform some of their skits, and they do it's actually really around improv. So it'll be more real to her at that point. But I think it's a great experience for everybody. It's so frightening.
But pushing yourself through that fear is so good. And this brings back a memory. I taught 8 to 12-year-old stand-up comedy. So, and I told you I teach at Temple, right? So I've been doing non-credit work at Temple
we didn't talk about that.
I know, that's another thing that I do. So I've been doing that since 2003, started with them. So there were a couple, they have a kids camp every summer. And I love, and still love my boss at Temple. And she said, well, I'd like you to do a stand-up comedy camp for kids. I was like, I don't know if I can teach kids. What are their ages? 8 to 12. I don't know. Well, you can't really say no to her. So I eventually end up doing this stand-up comedy class for 8 to 12-year-olds. What they learned, the life skills that you pick up. Now, I highly doubt any of them will be stand-up comics. Maybe they will. But just learning how to get up in front of a group, how to handle a microphone, how to be a gracious MC. Because the MC is all about making the other comics look good and getting the audience engaged. Handling failure.
Yes.
Like, we actually had lessons on what do you do when your joke bombs. And I gave them saver lines that they memorized so that they could use the saver line. All of those, what beautiful life skills they are.
Yeah, those are
these
just
children.
strategies.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So all of these things that we're talking about, this is an organizing show.
I know. Because, I have to keep organized to do all this stuff.
You have to keep organized to do all this stuff. And, when people watch this and they're, we're rattling off all the things that you're into, all the things that all my guests are into, there's a lot of people in this area that are very driven, that, we have so many opportunities in Philadelphia. It's one of the reasons I absolutely love this region. And, I've called Philadelphia my hometown for the last 25 years, even though I didn't grow up here. But it is an organizing show. So let's talk about, how you eat an elephant. You know that old thing, right? How do you eat an elephant?
Yes, one bite at a time.
So how do you keep yourself sane with going in all these different directions at once?
There's 2 primary tools. And as I've gotten older, I've had a third tool, which was my memory. As I've gotten older, not as good. So I really have to rely on the 2 primary tools.
Is it not as good, or do you think your brain is full?
I think my brain is full.
I think a lot of us, a lot of us feel like we're losing our capabilities, but in reality, and I've got some data and some research that backs this up, data is just coming at us too darn fast.
Yeah.
We are literally living in a faster paced world. So I'm glad you brought that up. Your memory, my memory, maybe it's not as good as it was when we were teenagers.
I can't trust it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So the 2 tools I use, calendar and a to-do list.
Okay.
That's it.
So boring.
But you know what? Sanity saver.
There you go.
So if there's something I need to do, the first question I ask myself is, can you calendar it? So if you say, Theresa, I want you to write an article for me for a newsletter, that's something I can calendar. You have a deadline that you want me to meet, so I can block time. It goes on my calendar. It also goes on my to-do list. If it's due within the next week, it gets an A priority. If it's due later, it gets a B priority. So I've got my to-do list, my calendar, and the to-do list is my sanity check every day. What's on the A list? What needs to get done? And then my calendar is, here's the time you've allotted to get these things done.
So do I hear you saying that if I give you a deadline, you're going to allot time, you're not just going to put the deadline on there, but you're going to allot time to do the
task.
Okay.
Yes, because if I don't, what happens? Well, you know what would happen. I would wait till the day before the deadline, which it'll still get done. It'll just not be pretty, right?
Yeah.
There'll be tears, gnashing of teeth.
Yes.
Why do I do this every time?
I might know a little bit about that.
Yeah. So now that's not to say that sometimes I don't still wait till the last minute. Sometimes I do.
Sometimes I do.
But it's a mindful choice. It's a choice where I say, that's going to be uncomfortable for you.
Well, isn't life, I think life is all about making trade-offs, and you're making choices all day long.
Yes.
From the time we get up in the morning, black eyeliner or blue, right?
Right.
We make choices all day long, and sometimes the choice is to defer the choice.
Yeah.
But it's still a choice.
But it should be strategic.
Yeah.
It should be a conscious choice and not willy-nilly.
Yeah.
And that saves my sanity.
Right.
Because I want to do all these crazy things. Now, some people will be like, why would you do? I get joy from it. Other people, they don't want to spend all this time. I do. So if I'm going to do this, then I have to be kind of maniacal about time management.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And I have a crazy schedule too, and I find, let me see if this is the same for you, but I find that when I am putting things on my calendar, if my stomach kind of goes to the pit of my stomach and I think, I don't feel really great about putting it on my calendar today, that's sometimes a little cue for me to say, all right, maybe I need to make room for something else. And maybe the time for doing that kind of activity has spent itself out. Maybe it's past, and maybe I just need to look forward instead of saying, I do this thing, I'm a teacher, I do clubs or whatever. And maybe I just need to, look forward and not stress about it.
Sometimes you have to follow your gut. Yeah. Certainly, as an author, you probably block some time to write.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Sometimes it's just not there.
Yeah.
And you can't fight it, and that's okay. But then you just have to be smart about, all right, well, if I'm not going to write now, what am I going to do? And then I'm going to have to move this time forward.
Yeah.
So.
Theresa, you've been a great guest to have on the show today. I want to ask you a question that I think you'd be perfect, you'd have some perfect advice for. What's one thing that you would tell your younger self?
In general?
In general. Organizing or, just any advice that you'd give your younger self.
Get out of your own head. I think that is the advice I've followed that has enabled me to take risks and do things I ordinarily wouldn't.
What do you mean by that?
I think, and this is part of my stand-up comedy for kids and adults, if you're in your own head, you're thinking, oh my gosh, what do I look like? What are people thinking? It's all about worry about how you're perceived. When you get out of your own head, it's more about, so being interviewed here, I'm not thinking about I'm like, how can I honor Darla on her show? This is about a good interview for you and for this station, So that's getting out of your own head. Focus on the bigger picture and how you're serving that bigger picture.
That is such great advice. Thank you. I'm going to tell my younger self that. And I hope that our viewers have enjoyed all of your great advice today. I hope that they go and check out your business, your comedy, and
come to meet the author
club. Meet the author club, absolutely. Hopefully you'll see me there mixing and mingling at some point soon. And thank you so much, Theresa, for being on Organizing Elephants on Mainline TV, Mainline Network.